That phone in your hand rings, and without thinking, you answer it with a smile in your voice. And somewhere in the next 2 minutes, you say something like, "Oh, I'll have to figure that out on my own." Or maybe, "I'm usually home during the day. You can call back anytime." And you've said something like that 100 times. It feels like small talk. It feels like being friendly. But to the person on the other end of that call, those words aren't small talk. They're data. And the moment those words leave your mouth, your phone number gets scored, flagged, and sold to someone who is going to come back for you with a plan already in place. What you just handed over is called a solo profile, a complete picture of your vulnerability assembled from ordinary conversation without you ever knowing an interview was taking place. And by the time this video ends, you're going to know exactly what those phrases sound like, exactly why they're so dangerous, and exactly what to say instead, so that no caller ever again can walk away from a conversation with you carrying that kind of ammunition. That's not a promise about what this video will cover. That's a promise about what you will be able to do when it's over. Here's how this actually works, because it's more deliberate than most people imagine. The call that eventually steals from you almost never starts with a scam. It starts weeks earlier with what fraud researchers call a profiling call. Preliminary contact disguised as a Medicare survey, a wrong number who stays to chat, a friendly wellness check from a company you've never heard of. The caller isn't trying to take anything from you on that call. They're trying to learn 3 specific things: whether you live alone, whether family is nearby to check in on your decisions, and whether there's anyone else in the household who would need to agree before money moved. 3 signals. That's the whole interview. When those 3 signals come back positive, yes, lives alone, yes, family is distant, yes, makes financial decisions independently, your number gets classified, not in the way a business classifies a customer, in the way a predator classifies a target. That classification is called a solo profile, and it is a formal, monetized designation in the underground lead market. Fraud operations run on data, and verified solo profile numbers are premium inventory. They sell for up to 5 times more than unscreened numbers on the databases where these lists are traded. Your loneliness, or even just your politeness about describing your life, has a dollar value, and someone just put a price on yours. The 3 phrases that trigger this classification aren't unusual or suspicious sounding. That's the whole design. The first type is anything that confirms no co-decision maker in the household, something like, "I'll have to figure that out myself," or "I don't really have anyone to ask." The second type confirms availability and isolation together. "I'm home most days, feel free to call back anytime." The third type hands over the geographic distance from family in one sentence. "My kids live across the country, so I handle all of this on my own." These phrases feel polite, honest, and human. They are also the 3 most valuable things a fraud operation can learn about you in a single call. Once that profile is complete, it doesn't stay with the person who built it. It moves. The number is sold, sometimes within hours, to a more sophisticated operation whose callers already know you live alone before they dial. They already know no one is going to walk in and ask questions. They already know there's no spouse to say, "Wait, let me look at that." The scam hasn't started yet. The setup is already finished, and you were the one who finished it without knowing you were being asked anything at all. According to the FBI's 2023 Elder Fraud Report, Americans over 60 lost $3.4 billion to fraud that year, an increase of 11% from the year before. That number only counts what was reported. Behavioral researchers studying financial exploitation of older adults have found consistently that socially isolated seniors are 2 to 3 times more likely to be successfully defrauded than those with active family contact. Fraud operations know this. They don't just exploit it opportunistically, they operationalize it. The solo profile exists because someone looked at that data and built a business model around it. The profiling call is the product of that business model, and the technology has gotten sharper. AI-assisted voice analysis can now flag isolation signals in real time during a call, scanning for phrases that suggest solitude, availability, and single decision-maker status without a human analyst needing to review the transcript. What used to require a skilled caller with good instincts now happens automatically, at scale, across thousands of calls simultaneously. There is also a hybrid variant that has emerged in documented fraud reports, a combination of the solo profile call followed by a so-called grandparent scam, where a caller uses the family distance information you provided to make an emergency involving a grandchild feel credible. They already know your daughter lives in Seattle. They already know your grandson is at school 3 states away. The script writes itself. So here's the question you need to sit with for a moment. If a stranger called you right now, today, this afternoon, and asked how things were going, would you know whether you were being interviewed, or would you just be friendly? Meet Carol. She's 71 and she lives in Dayton, Ohio. On an ordinary Tuesday morning in late October, she received a call from someone identifying themselves as a Medicare coverage coordinator. The voice was professional, unhurried, and kind. The caller asked a few routine questions about her plan, and then, with a light conversational tone, asked whether a family member helped her manage her healthcare decisions. Carol said what was true. She said, "No, I've handled everything myself since my husband passed. My daughter lives out in Seattle." The caller thanked her warmly and hung up. The call lasted 4 minutes. Carol didn't think about it again. 4 days later, a different phone number, a different voice. A caller identifying himself as a hospital social worker said there had been an accident involving Carol's granddaughter, an emergency situation that required an immediate payment to release her from a holding situation before the family could be notified through official channels. The caller knew Carol lived alone. He knew her daughter was in Seattle. He knew there was no one to call in the next 10 minutes who could verify or interrupt. The script was built from the file Carol had completed herself 4 days earlier. She sent $4,200 in Amazon gift cards before her daughter could be reached. By the time the fraud was confirmed, the money was gone and the numbers were disconnected. Carol is not careless. Carol is not naive. Carol is a retired school librarian who managed a household budget for 38 years and raised 2 children on her own after her husband's illness. The scam worked on Carol because it was designed by professionals whose full-time job is to defeat careful, intelligent, cooperative people. The profiling call defeated Carol because it didn't look like a threat. It looked like a conversation. And if that story sounds familiar, if that Tuesday morning sounds like a Tuesday morning you've had, that's exactly the point. Carol's story isn't a warning about someone else. It's a mirror. Now step back from Carol for a moment and look at the full picture. The FBI's elder fraud data shows that phone-based scams remain the dominant delivery mechanism. Over 60% of reported cases begin with an unsolicited call. The FTC's Consumer Sentinel Network reported in 2024 that imposter scams, which include the grandparent scam hybrid, accounted for the single largest category of fraud losses among adults over 60. These are not isolated incidents. They are the output of an industry. And the industry is growing because the raw material, the phones, the polite conversations, the trusting voices answering every call, is abundant and unprotected. What makes the current moment different from 5 years ago is the data infrastructure. Individual scammers are no longer the primary threat. Organized fraud operations, some documented by the FBI as international networks running call center-style operations, now purchase refined target lists, deploy AI-assisted call screening, and operate with the kind of systematic efficiency that makes individual vigilance alone insufficient. A phone number with a verified solo profile doesn't just get one scam attempt, it gets retried, resold, and recycled across multiple operations until it stops being productive. If your number has been profiled, the threats may keep coming from different angles, different scripts, different actors, all working from the same foundational intelligence you provided. So what actually stops it? Not caller ID, not call blocking apps alone, not general wariness. What stops it is removing the raw material, the phrases and answers that build the solo profile in the first place. Because here's the mechanical reality. A profiling call cannot complete its job if you never confirm the 3 signals. And the simplest, most durable way to deny those signals is a single behavioral shift known as the plural shield. The plural shield is this: never use singular language about your living situation or decision-making with any unsolicited caller. Use we. Even when you live alone, this isn't deception. It is a deliberate, protective use of ambiguity. No caller can verify whether we refers to a spouse, an adult child, a roommate, or a household arrangement. What they hear is the opposite of the solo profile. They hear a household with multiple people, multiple voices, and multiple checkpoints before any decision gets made. The scam needs a single point of entry. We closes that entry point at the exact moment the profiling call is trying to open it. Here's the contrast so you can see exactly how the mechanism breaks down. The scam needs you to confirm, I live alone, I decide alone, no one nearby will interfere. The plural shield denies all 3 in the same sentence. When you say, "We'll need to look into that," the caller cannot check the box for solo decision maker. When you say, "I have people who help me with these things," the caller cannot check the box for no family oversight. When you say, "We're not usually available on short notice," the caller cannot check the box for high accessibility. The profiling call has failed to qualify you. Your number does not get flagged. Your profile does not get completed. You never enter the premium targeting database. Here is the full protocol step by step. Step 1. Replace "I'll decide on my own" with "We'll need to look into that." That phrase alone defeats the co-decision maker signal. Step 2. When asked about family, use "I have people who help me with these decisions." It's honest, it's vague, and it's protective. Step 3. Any unsolicited call that asks conversational questions about your daily life, your household, or your routine is a profiling attempt. You are allowed to hang up without explanation. You don't owe a stranger a polite goodbye. Step 4. After any suspicious call, report the number to the FTC at reportfraud.ftc.gov, a free official federal reporting channel that feeds directly into fraud pattern databases. Step 5. Use your phone's built-in call screening feature or a free service like Nomorobo, which cross-references incoming numbers against known scam databases before the call connects. Now, about that feeling of rudeness. You might hear, "I have people who help me with these decisions," and think, "That seems cold. That seems dismissive. That's not how I was raised to talk to people," and that instinct is understandable and completely normal. It is also the exact instinct the profiling call is engineered to activate. Politeness is not just a social habit in this context. Politeness is the attack surface. The caller's tone, warm, professional, unhurried, is specifically designed to make you feel like being guarded would be unkind. Breaking that feeling of social obligation is not rudeness. It is the most important thing you can do in that moment. Protecting yourself from a scam is not impolite. Allowing a scammer to build a profile of your vulnerability because you didn't want to seem unfriendly, that is the real cost of misplaced courtesy. But what if you've already said these things? What if you're thinking right now about a call from last week, a survey you answered, a friendly wrong number that stayed on the line longer than it should have? First, stop. Take a breath. What happened to you is not a reflection of your intelligence, your carefulness, or your judgment. These are professional operations run by people whose entire workday is spent finding exactly what to say to defeat exactly the kind of careful, cooperative, trusting person you are. Being successfully profiled means the operation worked as designed. It says everything about their sophistication and nothing about your failure. Now here is what you do in the next 24 to 48 hours. Step 1. Call your bank's fraud line, the number on the back of your debit or credit card, and place a verbal alert on your account. Tell them you may have provided information to an unsolicited caller and request that any large or unusual transaction trigger a callback before it processes. Step 2. Contact the 3 major credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, and place a free fraud alert. A fraud alert requires creditors to take extra verification steps before opening new accounts in your name. You only need to contact one bureau, and they are legally required to notify the other 2. Step 3. Report the call to the FTC at reportfraud.ftc.gov and to the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center at ic3.gov. These reports don't just help you, they feed pattern databases that help protect other people whose numbers may be on the same list as yours. By taking those steps, you have done something real. You've placed a flag on your financial accounts that gives you an additional barrier between a scammer and your money. You've activated federal fraud alert infrastructure that has legal teeth. You've contributed to the documented record that law enforcement uses to disrupt these operations. You are no longer just a potential victim waiting for the next call. You are someone who took action, and that action has weight. Think for a moment about someone in your life who would answer a call from an unknown number and be warm and polite and open without a second thought. Maybe it's a parent who still answers every call because that's what you do when someone reaches out. Maybe it's a neighbor who lives alone and fills their days with conversation because the house gets quiet. Maybe it's a friend who would say without hesitation, "Oh, my kids are far away. I handle all of this myself," because they're proud of their independence and they have nothing to hide. Picture that specific person. Picture them on a Tuesday morning picking up an unknown call with a smile. They don't know yet what a profiling call is. They've never heard of a solo profile, and they're about to answer 3 questions that will end up in a database. Send this to them, not to support the channel, not as something interesting you watched. Send it because you now know something they don't, and what you know could protect them from losing thousands of dollars and months of recovery and the particular shame that comes from feeling like you should have known better. You didn't know better until someone told you. Now you do. So tell them. The most protective thing you can do for someone you love is share what you know before they need it.